Welcome to Bigfoot Society. If you have Bigfoot activity to report from the same areas discussed in this episode, please reach out to me directly after this episode. And if you'd like to be on the podcast to discuss a personal Bigfoot encounter, please reach out to me directly at bigfootsociety@gmail.com. Do you wish there was more Bigfoot Society to listen to every week? Well, there is now. If you become a supporting member over at Patreon, you get a special members-only episode every single week on Wednesdays, and sometimes even more episodes. Head on over to patreon.com/the Bigfoot Society. And now let's get on with the show. All right, Bigfoot Society, you've got the privilege of talking to a gentleman whose name is Steve. He's from Louisiana, and he had reached out to me after hearing the podcast and wanted to share what he experienced in his own life quite a while ago. But Steve, how are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing good. Just an old fella sitting on my front porch in the woods. So yeah, I'm doing fine. Well, it's fixing to rain out here, but that's okay.
Yeah, so you are way out there in Louisiana, correct?
I'm way out in the woods, yes, sir, in Southwest Louisiana.
Oh,
away from everybody.
I love that. That sounds great to me. But so we were talking before, and you have had. Back in the 70s, you had a really interesting thing happen, and I would love if you'd be able to share with my listeners what you experienced on the farm that day.
Sure. I'm 68 years old, and this happened when I was 19. I was a 19-year-old soldier in the military, and all those years, you have a traumatic experience that sticks in your mind, and you remember details, and it's like it's yesterday, and it's kind of like flashbacks going back. And I know being in the military, in combat situations, things that stuck with me since those points too. So, but yeah, it almost gives me chills to this day even talking about it, because I guess the best way to start it, I didn't believe in these things. I didn't believe in these creatures. I didn't believe these things existed. I was your basic, you can't see it, can't touch it, can't feel it, it don't exist type person. And I've always been that way. And so this was a game changer for me. And I learned something very special on this, that not everything we're taught in public school is reality. There are things that we're not taught or are taught that are not real. And this is in our face type of situation when it does pop up, if that makes any sense. Okay, back in 1975, I was PCS from Fort Benning, Georgia, and down to Fort Polk, Louisiana, 1st Infantry Battalion. And me and a few of the Rangers came down from Benning, and to start up, we were reactivating 1st 51st. I had a good friend of mine that I was stationed with, that he was from Arkansas. And so one weekend he said, look, why don't you come over and spend the weekend with my family over there on our farm? It's kind of out in the woods, outside about, west of Camden, Arkansas, which was a small town back in 75. And I said, sure. Anytime we can get off post on weekends, you want to go, because when they have special detail, they're going to call you if you're still there. So made myself scarce quick. So I went with him and went up there and met his family. And there's an old farm out there in the middle of nowhere. I mean, it was miles outside of Camden, out there in the woods, and kind of like nestled between. Later on, I found out, between Camden and Falk, Barky Creek area, not too far from there. And but in any case, the farm was about 250 acres. And met his brother and his sister. Of course, his sister and he became an item. We started, I started going there to see her instead of him. And so I got buddy with his daddy pretty good, and me and his dad, we'd go ahead and I'd help them build fence and tend to the cattle and the things on the farm. I love that kind of thing. Well, this one sort of a weekend, it was a regular thing. I went over, every weekend, and unless I had duty or something. It was one particular weekend in June. We got up there. It was a 4-hour drive from Post to either farm and up in Arkansas. And so the granny had made dinner, and she could cook. That woman could make some fried chicken that's make you want to bust your socks. And so we ate, went ahead and hunkered down and then watched TV about 9:30 that night. And Granny was in the kitchen washing dishes. We were all hunkered down in the den. And all of a sudden she screamed. And when I say screamed, I mean it rattled through, it penetrated through the walls like someone just put a butcher knife in her back. And that old cabin house, it was been 100 years old or older. We all jumped up, ran. You can hear crick, crick, crick. It's like the whole house fit to fall apart. All of us running like a stampede going through this wooden floored house, And we ran through there. I was the first one in the kitchen. And got through the door in the kitchen, and I almost cut a flip over Granny. She was on the floor on her hind end, and she was pointing towards the kitchen window over the sink, and she was just yelling, "I seen it again, I seen it again." And she was frantic. Well, I was thinking in my military mind that she's seen an intruder, someone trying to break in. So that's what I'm thinking. Evidently, her family knew different. No one let me in on the idea of what was going on. I just thought it was an intruder. Well, her daddy said, arm up. So we all grabbed rifles and shotguns off the racks in the hallway. They were all hunters like I was. We loved to hunt. So, and we armed up, went out back. Going back on the back of the house, we came down the stairs, and it was out there in the back porch. Came out to the old pasture back there. And this farmhouse was probably about a couple miles away from the next house out there. So it was pretty desolate. My girlfriend and her mama stayed inside with Granny to go ahead and tend to her because she was pretty shook up. Well, we got out the back. Her two brothers went to the right. Me and her daddy went to the left. And we figured we split up and cover them on the ground. Going out there, I'm going to paint the picture for you here best I can so you can understand. It was a very bright noon night that night. Very bright. You know how bright the moon can get. It's like daylight. You can see across the pasture. You can see everywhere. I mean, they got details and everything. Very bright moon. And I seen the cattle across the pasture. They were all hunkered up together on the far end of the pasture, and they were cutting up. Well, of course, in old country, boy, that pretty much significant. It means that, there's a predator out there. That's why they do that. Well, I figured that could have been a coyote. It could have been a bobcat, no big deal. What did catch my attention was set the first clue off to me that what we're going after isn't just your everyday intruder. Was his 3 hunting dogs he had. He had 3 big old blue ticks, and these were trained to run deer. I mean, they were hunting dogs, and they always cut up all the time. But they were under the porch and they were whining. They were scared to death. That caught my attention. Now I'm thinking, wait a minute. This ain't no intruder, because if it was a regular intruder, them dogs be cutting up all through the woods. You'd heard them cross the state cutting up. They're into the house whining. They're scared. What in the world can scare trained hunting dogs? So now I'm really on edge. My hair on my back and the neck standing up, and I ain't got much hair in my head being in the military. So I'm following Bobby Ray, which was her daddy, and I was following him. I said, what about the dogs? He said, don't worry about that. Stay close behind me. He knows what's going on. I don't. He not letting me in. And I said, Bobby Ray, what are we going after? He said, stay close behind me. As we going towards the corner post, it's a corner post. We had just built this fence. Okay, a couple months earlier, we had built this fence, and it was a divider fence from the main pasture in the 50-acre swamp that they had, because it's a 250-acre farm, like I said. 50 acres of it was bad swamp, real thick, boggy, everything. He didn't want his cattle going in there, so we built that fence and divided. And it was made out of 4-foot cattle panel, and we put a stretch of barbed wire. It's about 5 foot high. And so as we're coming to the corner post, maybe about 10 foot from it, and all of a sudden we caught a stench. I mean, a rough stench. It was a bad stench here. It was like something died. And then all of a sudden, that's when the world came alive. All of a sudden, in the thicket, other side of the fence, right in front of us, and we couldn't see it because it was so thick, but we can go ahead and hear the rustling. It was like a 2,000-pound rhino just turning and burning in this real thicket. limbs are snapping and breaking, and dry leaves is crunching, all kind of stuff going on, all kind of racket. Then all of a sudden, at this point, right here, and this gives me chills even saying this, man, I tell you what, this old man here at this point is when my whole world changed. This is when everything I was taught to believe completely fell apart. This thing jumped over the fence. It was rustling in the thicket. It come over the fence, one leap, over a 5-foot fence. And it landed in that pasture right in front of us, maybe 25 foot. I believe we measured 25 foot the next day when we pulled a recon. We found the tracks. And when it landed down in the pasture, it stood up. Then I slowed this down for y'all to go ahead and give you the picture. Okay, it's all happened in a matter of about 20 seconds. But I'm slowing it down so I can give you the picture. Okay. It was squatted down when it landed in the pasture. It stood up. It was stood up, and it stood up flank of us. Okay, when I'm saying by flank, we were looking at it. It was facing to our right. So we're looking at its right profile. It stood up. And then also when it did that, it was like it took forever to stand up. This thing had to have been every bit 8 foot tall, maybe 9 foot. I'm guessing at 8. It was covered in dark hair, long, stringy hair. It had a man's profile. We could see that in the moonlight. It wasn't a bear. Because the first thing hit my head was bear. But then I thought, wait a minute, there ain't no bear that big in Arkansas. And it didn't have, a bear has a snout. This didn't have a snout. It had a man's profile. I mean, man's lips, mouth, the whole 9 yards. But it was covered in hair. It had long arms. His arms went down almost to his hands, almost to his knees. He had big hands, long fingers. Big, huge hands. So I knew it wasn't a bear, because bear don't have fingers. It has paws. But it was standing straight up, which, again, my mind's trying to process this. Is it a bear? Because I've seen bear, many bears and grizzlies. I've seen black bears. They all stand up like a man, and they can walk like a man, Well, this thing stood straight up, and then it went ahead and it ran. And when it did that, it ran away from us. Didn't try to aggress us, didn't try to attack us. It ran away from us, which is the only reason why, because I had a 12 gauge and her daddy had a 410. Only reason why I didn't go ahead and unload. If it had aggressed us, I'd have unloaded, reloaded, unloaded again. But it didn't. It ran from us. And we watched it run across the pasture like a track star. Again, another indication it was no bear, because a bear can't run like a man. It can't run 2 legs. It has to sprawl all 4s. It can walk on 2 legs, but it can't run. Leg structure won't allow it to. So at no time did it fall to all 4s. It ran across that 100-yard pasture straight like a man, swinging arms and everything. The whole 9 yards. When it ran across there's a cattle gate we had built. It was made out of oak 2x6s. And if you know anything about oak, it's not a light wood, it's heavy. And it's a hardwood. And it crashed through that cattle gate, and it shredded it. You hear me? It shredded it like it was a D9 dozer. Now, again, we can say, oh, well, all this is going through my head. With a guy in a suit, there ain't no guy I know can run through 2x6 oak and shatter it. It ain't happening, son. A refrigerator, couldn't do that. So this is, got my, what in the world? When he crashed through that thing, now, of course, we didn't follow him past that. That's what scared the fire out of us when it did that. And then it hollered. It roared. It made a huge roar. And it sounded like a lion or something and ended like an elephant. It was the weirdest roar I ever heard. It just gave me chills. Well, by that time, that's when her brothers come around the other end. They said, hey, did you hear that? Did y'all hear that? I said, here, we didn't see the damn thing. Well, y'all seen it? I said, yeah. It crashed to the cattle gate, so none of us didn't go over there and chase it. Well, okay, so we figured the next day we'd go ahead and look back at the tracks and everything else, but we sat outside for a few minutes trying to cool down, because I'm talking about hearts are racing right now, adrenaline's pumping. I had to calm her daddy down. He was going crazy. And so we sat there, and he's over to cry. And he said, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. How do I protect my family from this? It comes around every once in a while. I said, you've seen this thing before? He said, yes, it comes around every once in a while. And it's never tried to break in the house. It always looks in the window at Granny. Maybe it's her cooking. Maybe that draws it to it, and it's curious, looks in the window at her. I don't know. Which answered my question why we went in the kitchen when she was yelling, that she kept saying she's seen it again. So evidently it was repeatedly. And he, of course, put the cap on that one. He said, yes, it comes around every once in a while. I don't know what to do. And I said, well, we need to go ahead and, call the state, wildlife and fisheries or something, game control. He said, no. I don't want no outsiders coming in here. This is a small, community out here. At that time, Camden was very small. He said, people will start calling us crazy if we, I don't want no one else knowing about this. He said, promise me you won't talk about it. Well, I'm a soldier. No problem. I mean, Bobby, I won't talk about it. I'll keep my mouth shut. And so we went out. Her oldest brother was about 6'4", and I said, "Hey, look," I said, "let's go over here to the kitchen window." Now the house is up on pylons. They live not too far from a river, and evidently every once in a while it might flood out a little bit. So they had the house up on pylons. And I said, "Look," I said, "you 6'4". I said, "raise your hand up high as you can and see if you can reach that window." Well, he did, and I reckon at 6'4". Full arm stretch, his fingertips reached up close to about 8 foot. I'd say maybe 7 foot. And he barely can, his fingertips being probably 7 foot up in the air, he can barely go ahead and touch the bottom rim of that kitchen window, which put in perspective, whatever looking at that window had to have been 8 foot tall or taller. So now, we're trying to put the puzzle together a little bit. Well, once we went ahead and calmed down, and I got Bobby to calm down. I said, look, okay, we went inside and went ahead and made some coffee. At that time, Granny was kind of, she was kind of calmed down a little bit. So we all kind of sat down and just kind of little groups. I was with Granny trying to find out, I said, when you see this thing's face, what it looked like? We've seen its profile. We've seen the body. We know we know what we've seen, but we didn't see its face straight on. What did you see when it looked in the window at you? She goes, I've seen this face very well. I've seen it many times. And I said, what did it look like? She said, like a huge man's face. It almost filled up the whole window. And she said it had rough skin, it had hair around its face, but not on its face, if that makes sense. It had a huge nose, and it had big red glowing eyes. And I said, whoa. So that just threw me for a loop. I've never heard about this red-eye thing. This is back in 75. So, I'm thinking, the only thing I'm thinking about related to is vampires. We see on the movies. So, wow. Well, she was they were strong Pentecostals. And, she was thinking, I don't know if this thing's evil or what, And I asked a few questions. I said, well, Bobby said it never tried to break in the house. She said, no, it never has tried to break in the house. It never tried to attack anybody. And so she said, we've never had any problem with that. And the only destruction it's ever done was, of course, that same night when it broke through the cattle gate. So we sat up, had coffee the rest of the night. No one slept. Everyone was too wired. I'm talking about there's no way no one was asleep after all that. And so when we got daylight, we decided to pull a recon. Of course, the girls were scared. They didn't want to go out there. So Granny and my girlfriend and her mama stayed in the house. So me and her brothers and her daddy went out there. And we started back at the point of origin where the creature first jumped over the dividing fence and the swamp to the pasture. We found the tracks where it landed right there. Big old footprints right there. And then, of course, where it ran across the pasture. And it was definitely heavy. To the way it sunk down in that dirt, in that grass, it was heavy. So we figured it had to be, and looking at it, as muscular and powerful as built, it had to have been probably 600, maybe 700 pounds, as well as being 8 foot tall or taller. In any case, it jumped that fence. It cleared that fence, that 5 foot fence, cleared the barbed wire. No hair, nothing on that original fence. It jumped. And then when it followed the footprints across the pasture, about 100-yard pasture. And we found the footprints, following them, I can put my foot, I got, and my feet are, I wear size 10. I put heel or toe in one print. My toes would go over, but the rest of my first foot and most of my right foot were in that print. So we figured about 17 inches, 18 inches long on the footprints, which would be consistent with something the size of what we're saying. We went down to, of course, followed down to the cattle gate where it was broke and shattered. The 2x6s were shattered and broken. The barbed wire was broke. We found blood on the barbed wire, hair, all that. Now, understand, this is the 75. This is long before computers and cell phones. We didn't have that back then. So back then, we were just, there was no actual scientific DNA testing back then, that kind of stuff. So we never thought about collecting the hair or the blood or anything else. Which to this day I wish we would have, but it would have been amazing. But in any case, the power of this thing going through that cattle gate did two things. Number one, it pulled, the force of it pulled the corner post. The corner post is made out of a cut down telephone pole, sunk about 5 foot deep in the ground. It jerked it and laid it down. It didn't break it. It jerked it over and laid it down. Do you have any kind of idea of the force it would take to do something like that? That's a tremendous amount of force. Not to mention, about 20 foot to the left of that cattle gate was a squeeze chute. For those who don't know what a squeeze chute is, when people who have cattle, they have a squeeze chute. Squeeze chute, they run the cattle through it. When they're working their cattle, they squeeze it down. It squeezes down around the cow or the bull, holds it in place where you can go ahead and tag it, clip their horns, whatever you want to do. The whole idea to manage. Well, that's an iron cage, and it done bent those bars. I'm talking about just bent them out of shape. Again, a tremendous amount of force. So this was like a boggled my mind. Then after it went on down, after it did that, went on and it went into a huge sawtooth briar. A patch. There was just nothing but sawtooth briars through there. And we wasn't about to go through there and follow it, the tracks any further. That just went on then deep into the woods after that. So after all that, we went back, sat down in the house, and of course Bobby rented it. He said, "Please don't talk about this to anybody. I don't want, we've got a reputation. We bring our produce to town, and we go ahead and sell it there. And if the word gets out, people think we're crazy. We'll just lose our business and everything." I said, "I understand. Don't worry. I will not go ahead and mention the thing." And we did. When me and her brother went back to the post, we never talked about it. Not even amongst ourselves. In the following weekends that I went there, we never talked about it. We get over there, it's like it never happened. Bobby didn't bring it up, we didn't bring it up, and that was it. It was taboo. We didn't even talk about it. And the following weekends after that I went there, I never seen it again. Now, did it come around during the week when I wasn't there? I don't know. They never said, and I didn't ask. But the weekends after that, I was there. I never saw it again. But it was always on my mind. And so when I was, I guess, so shocked at this that I decided to go ahead and just keep it locked up inside of me. And I did. And I came out of the military in 81 and came back, went overseas. And then, of course, overseas, I came back here to Louisiana. I went ahead and I buried myself in the part of the woods I could find, which I did, and met my wife in 84 and got married. We got out here in this woods, out here in the middle of nowhere. It's almost 7 miles out my back door through the woods to the next house. I live in a small little area, small community in southwest Louisiana. And so my first time I ever talked about it, which I didn't through my whole career in law enforcement, never even talked about it. People I talked to who did see these things, I just I would encourage them. I'd say, yeah, I mean, I don't think you're crazy, and, I want you to know I believe you, but I wouldn't tell them why. I wouldn't tell them my encounter. I wasn't ready to. And I kept it inside me for all the years, over 45 years. Well, then one day, I hung off in these woods, and of course my wife's uncle, my hunting buddy, he was older than I was, and so when I told him, I said, Uncle Lewis, I said, let's go hunting over in Coca Creek, which was about 10 miles from here. And he said, no, I don't go there. I'm not going to go there. I ain't been there in years. And I said, well, maybe because the terrain was pretty rough over there, which it was. He said, no, it's not the terrain. He said, I've seen something there years ago, and I ain't never been back, and it's back in the 50s. And I said, whoa. So I said, what'd you see? He said, I ain't telling you. I ain't going to talk about it because people think I'm crazy. I ain't telling my family. He said, your wife don't know. And that was his niece. And I kept on, maybe it's law enforcement in me. I don't know, but I kept on bugging him about it. So he finally came out and said, all right. And I said, well, let me tell you my encounter. If I tell you this, Uncle Lewis, maybe it'll kind of jog your memory a little bit and get you a little eased up. So first time in many years, I told him what happened to me in Arkansas, what I seen. And it kind of felt good to get it off my chest and tell him that. That old man almost broke down and cried because he said, I guess I ain't crazy then. And I said, no, sir, you're not crazy. He went ahead and told me his encounter, what he's seen. And he was hesitant, but he did. And so when he said, he saw a very similar creature to what I seen. Of course, there's been several sightings out here in Louisiana. I've never seen one out here in Louisiana. I've lived out here in these backwoods, and I've hunted these backwoods and these swamps out here for nearly 35, 40, 38 years. I've never seen a creature out here that I saw in Arkansas. I wish I could tell you I have, because people have seen them all around here. I just haven't. I never have. So I've had people tell me all the time, well, Steve, you believe that? You can tell people you've seen one every day. I said, I would kill my credibility. I'm not going to do that. I'll tell you what I've seen in Arkansas. That's it. I have not seen one since. I've never seen one again. And I don't want to see one again. I don't desire to. I have all the respect in the world for people who go out there and hunt these things, and want to find out the reality of them. And they want to hunt them as far as, learn more about them and everything else and try to find one or whatever. That's fine. Don't bring me with you because I won't go. I do not want to see one again. That rattled my cage because it showed me that there's things living in this world that we were taught don't exist, but they do. And before I seen that creature, I'd argue somewhere on the ground. If they said they saw one, I don't believe that, you're lying. Now, I'll argue in the ground telling you that they do exist. If you say they don't, get ready for an argument, because I'm going to stand my ground. I know they exist. I've seen this, no doubt. And but I've never seen one out here in Louisiana. And I've hunted all these woods out here. Now, it's always in my mind. I did one podcast, one of the guys had asked me, he said, well, do you ever think about it when you go hunting? I said, yeah, every time. I go out in these woods, I think about it because I hunt myself a lot. And, I don't know. And then maybe they're looking at me, but I've never seen one since I've been out here. Of course, there's about 45 miles north of me is a town called Zwolle, Louisiana. Of course, the mayor of Zwolle called the BFRO here a few years back because all the people in that area, that town, were seeing, the farmers out there were seeing these creatures. And so many sightings that he called the BFRO, and actually that show, Finding Bigfoot, came out there, did a series or a movie out there, show out there in Zwolle a few years back because there were so many sightings. And it ties into Kisatchie National Forest, which is where when I was in the military at Fort Polk, we did a lot of training out in that area called Peace on Ridge. That was part of Kisatchie. And Kisatchie National Forest is over 600,000 acres. It's huge. And there's been multiple sightings out there of these creatures. And so that's just, but I never have seen one out here in Louisiana. And if I ever did, people tell me, you can go out there behind your house and do some tree knocks. Are you crazy? I don't want to see one again. I'm not going to call one up. So, no, sir. And, but in any case, yes, was something that just, I guess, to this day, I stay just amazed at it, because I have to pinch my skin and say, did I really see what I saw? And I did. And these things are coming out more and more now. They are. People are seeing them more and more. And I believe my answer for that, and I could be 100% wrong, this is my answer for it, my philosophy, because we're clear cutting. We're clear cutting. We're going out there and we're clear cutting this land. We're taking all these forests out, taking out their habitat. So naturally, there's becoming more sightings now. These creatures that have less areas to hide in, and I believe they're half part human and part animal. Well, my synopsis of it is, the reason I say that, because they're very smart. And being half human, half animal gives them the ability to be the perfect creature, because they have the human ability of reasoning, if they're part human, and that's dangerous. Okay.
Oh yeah.
You count that, or couple that with the sixth sense of an animal, and the agility and the speed of a bobcat. It answers why they move so fast. Of course, their size, what they do, and how fast they go, but also they have that natural camouflage of an animal. And people ask me all the time. I got several calls from people on the podcast asking me, what's your philosophy on that? Why do you think they, how they can camouflage themselves so well? I said, easy. Anyone who's a deer hunter, squirrel hunter, will tell you this. You can walk through the woods, and I've been an avid deer hunter all my life, squirrel hunter, and you go through the woods. One of the biggest camouflages, that ability to camouflage that an animal has, like a deer or a squirrel, isn't just melding into the environment, to the trees and such. It's standing still. We call it freeze frame. If you're out there at a wood line, you're walking through a pasture, and there's a wood line around you, a creature, an animal, whatever, can be at that wood line and stand still. Not necessarily be hidden in the bushes or the leaves, just standing still. And you won't know it. It's there. Because as humans, what do we recognize? We pick up things by movement. Okay? By movement. If it's out there in the wood line, and all of a sudden you see it move, now you can pick it up. But if it's standing still, you can't see it. Deer hunters, deer hunt, man. You walk through the woods, and if a deer's standing there or he's hunkered down in the bush, you're not going to see him, because they stay still. They freeze frame. They don't move, and we can't sense that until they move and break form. And in the military, they taught us the truth value of camouflage, and what camouflage actually is actually going ahead and blending in your surroundings. That's what it is. It's breaking up your form and blending in your surroundings. That's what actual camouflage is. Hence why they designed the ghillie suit in the military. And so that's why they actually, in the military, went through stages on their camouflage fatigues and combat, your BDUs and all that kind of thing. They wore in the military. They went to, now they have, modern military today has those digital uniforms now.
Right.
Where they actually are smaller forms of camouflage, and they actually can stand, hide better. They blend in better. And so that's, what they have today. Back when I was there, they didn't have that. We said it was a BDU in cotton fatigues. But in any case, so that's my philosophy on that, is what they, because I get all kind of calls from people. Oh, man, what do you think about, this? And how do you think they do that? Why don't I think they go ahead and they find bones anywhere? And, they probably bury their own, I'm sure. I would think so. I've hunted deer all my life. I can't ever tell you the time that I've never found a deer skeleton in the woods. Now, they die out there. And if I get shot or by an arrow or by a bullet, and they run out there and no one ever finds them, they can't track them down, and they fall out and die. Yeah, but I've never come across a deer skeleton. And I've walked in the thickest parts of the woods and swamps you can find. And so I'm sure they're out there, but just, hey, what happens? Animals take them, whatever happens over a period of time. But these creatures here, I believe, are they climb trees, they get up to the treetops, and we're looking at the bottom ground floor, looking around on the roots and looking down at tree trunks and looking out around that area at eye level. We don't think about, hey, they can be up in the treetops. And if they are, guess what? There you go. So there's so many different things on that. But I'll tell you one thing I do believe this. See, that's before we see them. Lots of people out there who don't believe these things exist. I promise you, when they've been out in the woods, those creatures have seen them. They haven't seen the creature, but those creatures have seen them.
Absolutely.
And that's how these things are. I believe that 100%. I really do. I'm sure they've seen me out here in these woods. I've not seen them, but they've seen me, so, hey.
Oh.
But
wow.
That's it right there. It's kind of crazy, but, things like that would just shake you up, and you think, wait. I finally told my wife and my kids, about it when I started doing this podcast, and I said, look, this is what I've seen. Now, I want to throw this in the mix real quick. My son, my oldest son, he knew, he said, they both believe these things exist. I've never seen one. My son in Tennessee, he said, there's Bigfoot conferences all over Tennessee, around Nashville. He said, and, he's talked to several of his officers. He used to work for a sheriff's department, and he said that they've seen them, and, out there. But in any case, he came back here to Louisiana one time. He said, Pop, I want to take you over here to Falcon, Arkansas, out to the Bigfoot Museum. It's over there in Falcon. I've never been there before. This is when I learned how close Falcon was to my girl ex-girlfriend's farm. And so went there, met the owner a few years back, and talked to him. I told him my encounter. And he said, wow, he said, that is really something. He said, I've never seen one, but I have heard them. And I've got recordings on my phone when I've been out here in the Buggy Creek area and out here Sulphur Swamp, and I've heard these things, and I want you to hear them. And I did. A couple of them didn't sound familiar, but one of them made the hair back my neck stand up. It was very similar to what I heard. And he said, and you seen this thing this side of Camden? I said, yes, sir. I said, all right, 10, 15 miles this side of Camden. He said, well, Camden is just down the road here. He said, so you more or less, I believe you might have seen the same thing, because that was seen here in 71 in the Buggy Creek area. That's when the sightings started to be happening out here. And you've seen this a few years later in 75, just down on the road. He said, they migrate. I believe you've seen something in the similar, or not the same one the same family. I said, well, I don't know. I can't swear to that, but I said, it's very possible, I reckon, being given the vicinity. And so he said, man, he said, you ought to come out here sometime and go some of these, trips they go on, hunting trips for these things. I said, nope. No, sir. That's where I draw the line. I have no desire to see one again.
So sorry, they have hunting trips, or are they going on like expeditions?
Expeditions.
Okay.
When I say hunting, I'm not talking about hunting with weapons. I'm talking about, hunting as far as, expeditions. I should use the wrong word. My bad. But,
you're right.
Yeah, because I wouldn't want anyone to hunt it. As far as killing one. I know I've been asked, why did you carry a gun that night you went out? I said, we armed up because we thought it was an intruder. Now, I did. They knew what it was, but when I seen this thing, I said, if it attacked, come towards us, I would have gone ahead and unloaded on it. I wouldn't have thought twice. Mm-hmm. I said, but it ran away from us. And when it ran away from it, that gave me I guess it had almost a sense of humility. Like, this thing does not want to go in. It's not violent. I'm not going to sit there and shoot it, so no, I didn't. And some people ask me, why didn't you shoot it? I said, I'm not going to do that. That's not me. I believe in only killing two reasons: protection and food. And there was neither reason to do that right there.
Sure.
It didn't attack us, and I wasn't going to eat it. So, but no, I'm all behind people who go on expeditions. The old boy who does that podcast for,
what's the name? Sorry.
I think it's Sasquatch Theory.
Oh,
Miguel. That one there. And, Miguel. He goes out there on expeditions all the time.
Oh yeah.
And that's great. That is really good. And so I said, man, and what kind of got me thinking about, touching lives as far as helping people come forward with this. After I did that one with Sasquatch Theory with Miguel, about 4 months later, he had got a hold of me, and he said, "Hey," he said, "you need to check the question, the comments here and everything." He said, "We're getting all kind of calls," and he said, "Bubba," he said, "Look," he said, "you already got on this in 4 months, it already hit 245,000 views." And I said, "What? Yes?" And he said, "Yeah." He said, it's getting people to ask questions. They want to go ahead and come forward with theirs now. I said, "Well, great." So I started going back on there to answer the questions. And that's where it started at right there. And, that's why I said I'm on a quest now to help, get people to go ahead and help them come forward with theirs, because I know how it felt to keep it in all those years. Want to say something, but not to. My wife would have called me crazy. My sons would have called me crazy, but they've seen weird stuff in their lives, so they kind of, pretty much, understand it. And of course, they all believe me. But it's just, I here by the grace of God, go on. That's all I can say. So,
incredible. Yeah, people need to realize how there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people that have shared publicly what they've experienced, and so they're not just a singular person in a world where no one else has seen this thing. Just they need to, be able to realize they can step forward and share on a show like this or like Sasquatch Theory, and all those good shows. So, in case people a lot of people like to know, and we're not going to say like exact locations, but if someone was like, so you're saying within like a 15-mile radius of Camden, if someone has also had a sighting in there, then that's pretty close.
I would say so. Yeah. I've already had people ask me about that. And yeah, I've told them, I said, yeah, that area right there. And I've had several get a hold of me and say that they've been through that area before. They've had encounters out there, but be it the same one or not, I don't know. But I mean, I've had, truck drivers call me and say, "Hey man, look, so I mean, that's Arkansas is a very thick area. Louisiana is. Arkansas really is, and you get up in that area, it's all woods. I mean, it's thick. So, I mean, yeah, and so many sightings out there. Of course, through Louisiana, people don't think there's that many sightings in Louisiana. It's full. Oh, yeah. There's been sightings, I mean, all over Louisiana. So, I mean, it's a few miles from here. And like I said, my wife's uncle seen one over there. And Hawaii, not too far from here. Matter of fact, next week, taking my grandkids to a Bigfoot festival in Natchitoches, Louisiana. So,
totally.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. And then, so Lau Blackburn to come out here, do a little, him and a few others had come out here to do a little Bigfoot expo in Leesville, Louisiana. It's about 35 miles from here. And I asked him, I said, "When do you come back out here again?" And he said, "Hopefully sometime." So he does them all over Texas. And so I'd like to see him come out here again and do that, because it draws people out to get them to go ahead and really think about what's going on,
How do all these people know how to contact you?
Well, they can get my email, and they're more than happy to contact me, and I'll be more than happy to share this with them and help them, encourage them to come forward. What they can do is they can get my email, and it's chico337@yahoo.com.
Okay.
And they can get a hold of me, and I'm more than happy to help any way I can to go ahead and encourage them to come out and come forward, contact you and other podcasts, and go ahead and say, "Hey, look, people need to hear this, and you need to go ahead and get it off your chest. It's not doing you any good. I know what it feels like, and I had another encounter. I'm not going to share it with you right now, but we can do it in another podcast later on if you'd like to, when I was at Fort Polk, but that's a different story. But in any case, there's I didn't see anything. I didn't see that creature this time. I heard it. Did not see it this time, but on this one at Fort Polk. But in any case, I'm more than happy to help anyone I can, any way I can. So
that's awesome. You're right. Louisiana is such a crazy state. Are you around the same area, Monroe, or?
Okay, no, Monroe is north of me.
Okay.
I'm in southwest. So if you ever heard before of Lake Charles, Louisiana,
Yep.
or okay, I'm about 40 miles north of Lake Charles.
Gotcha.
And the nearest town to me is about 20 miles away, called DeRidder. And so I'm actually 5 miles. Well, actually about 8 miles from the Texas border, and it goes on into Monward, Texas, going toward Newton, Texas, Jasper, Texas. And so, but I'm right there, and this area is rich with these sightings. I mean, just rich. And I've my brother-in-law, my sister-in-law's husband, he told me one day, he said, man, we're sitting on my mother-in-law's front porch, and he said he owns a construction company. He travels all over the U.S. building malls and hospitals and everything else. Very business-like fella. And so he heard one of my podcasts, and he said, man, that's really interesting. And he come out and he said, well, Steve, I want to tell you something. He said, I had an encounter too. And I looked at him, I said, are you serious? And he told me, not even 20 miles away from here, Old River Dam, which is an old creek back here, slough, and he was setting traps back there. And he said he's seen one. Ruined a good boat. But he said never went out there again since. And I said, wow. And so, I mean, I was like, wow. So people start, it just helps them to open up. I don't talk about this. He said, I don't tell nobody this. I'm a businessman. I can't afford to hurt my business.
Exactly.
I said, I understand that, and so I respect him for not, wanting to tell other people. But you know what? The thing about it is, he heard me tell my encounter, it encouraged him to come forward with his. And that's the medicine right there, so.
No doubt. When you, and you can decline this if you want, but when you were in law enforcement and you said you were in an area where there are a lot of people coming forward with encounters and you didn't tell them yours, but is that something where you can share roundabouts where that area was, that there are lots of people coming forward?
Yeah, that's up around the Oakdale area, going up towards Oakdale, Louisiana, which was it's going east, northeast, and it's part of the state, which also is part of Kisatchie National Forest. Because, like I said, Kisatchie is huge, and it's part of that because Fort Polk, it's all around Fort Polk, and so that area there had several people, tell me, hey, I've seen this thing, just. My brother-in-law, my other brother-in-law, I have 3 sisters-in-laws. So their husbands always get a hold of me when they hear something. And he didn't ever believe these things existed either. And he believed my story, but he said, I just don't believe they're out here in Louisiana. So he worked for an extermination company, for bug extermination. I won't say the name of the company. But and he was going through the woods over here outside DeRidder, and which is a very small town. DeRidder's maybe population 8,000 people, so it's very small. And we live in Beauregard Parish. Beauregard Parish is one of the biggest parishes in Louisiana. And so he was, getting close to dusk, and he was coming down side road to the woods, trying to hurry up, get to another house to go ahead and spray. And he said something was on the side of the road, and it was like a huge hog. He thought it was a hog at first, but it was huge. It was covered in hair. He said, hogs don't have hair. He said, and it stood up. He said it walked across the road, and he almost hit it with his truck.
Oh, my.
And he said that he wasn't such a rush. He just, kind of stopped and kind of seen where it went to. But he said it was like a huge man that was covered in hair. And so he told me, he said, hey, I got to tell you about this, man. He said, I think I seen one. Well, you know what? Hey, I'm telling you, there's sightings all around. And so Louisiana is very rich in them. And it's
fascinating.
I just don't.
Sorry, being down there, is Bigfoot the only thing that's seen down there? Or have you been getting stories of other things as well?
Oh no, I've gotten several stories on the dog man, they call it. I've never seen one of them, but I've heard people. I've talked to people who have seen them, and I also had several stories. What we call out here in Louisiana rougarou. Rougarou is kind of like the cross between dog man and wolf man type of a creature. And I have talked to a few people that actually had seen down in South Louisiana these things morph, if you want to call it that, from a human to these creatures.
Oh, wow.
And I had a preacher's wife tell me that she actually seen one do that, and she called it a demon, because naturally being a preacher's wife, but she didn't understand what it was. But it literally morphed from a human into I said, wow, so I've never seen a dog man. I've never seen a rougarou. They're thick all through South Louisiana. You're going towards around Baton Rouge, New Orleans area, Grand Island, all that. There's a lot, Honey Island Swamp and all that area there. Those are thick with these creatures. And yeah, but as you come up this part of Louisiana, in central Louisiana, and Albany, North Louisiana, there's just as many. They're all through here. So, it's very unique, very unique. And then, of course, Florida, you got them out there. They call them skunk apes out there. They see them out there a lot. And so, I'm originally grew up in Southern California. I used to go up there to Yosemite Valley when I was a kid, going camping out there, in the mountains up there. And, they have a statue of Bigfoot out there. Of course, I always laughed at it, thought, before I had my encounter, thought, they don't exist. That's people's crazy,
Right.
But, of course, my perspective on that changed. 75.
The reports of Dogman, are those coming from the same areas that there's a lot of Bigfoot reports coming from, or do you find that they're from different areas?
No, they're all in similar areas. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, like I said, I've never seen a dog band myself. I don't doubt they exist. I mean, I know what Bigfoot does. I don't doubt they exist. I'm sure they do. I just never seen one myself. But many people have seen these things, and that's kind of like what my brother-in-law thought he saw. When it stood up and walked across the road on 2 feet in front of his truck. He thought it might have been like a dog man or something. But I don't know. He couldn't swear to it. I don't know. But I've there's lots of people claiming that, hey, they're seeing these things. Now, what are they? I don't know. I mean, hybrid. I mean, it can be anything. It can be anything. I mean, there's lots of hybrids out there of these creatures, of different creatures out there and stuff. They're finding them all the time. And who knows what's going on?
Are there any theories or legends down there of why there could be different areas in Louisiana where you're seeing not only Bigfoot, but also Dogman and probably other things?
Well, with the exception of the fact that you have so much thick woods out here and swamps out here and everything, the people out here in Louisiana are very, very what's the word I want to, superstitious in a sense.
Okay.
Because this state is based on old French beliefs and everything else, and so there's voodoo and that kind of stuff, is more prevalent down South Louisiana than it is around here. But there's still, a lot of your old Cajuns and that kind of thing believe in, there's ties to all that. And, we do have, and I don't follow into it, but we do have a lot of what they call devil worshipers out here. When I was working in law enforcement, we had to provide security because there was calls that they were going to go ahead and attack blonde-haired, blue-eyed girls at the high school prom. So we had to go provide security, and for them. And that same evening, we had found several cows, freshly killed cows.
Oh my!
And they were all drained of blood and no eyes. Freshly killed, but no blood, no eyes. Now, that's when we were, one of my associates, and he told me, he said, I think that's some devil worshippers doing this stuff. And certain Sabbaths and that kind of thing, they use that for the deal in it.
Wow.
And I will tell you this. People associate these devil worshippers and such like that with drug heads and people living on, in a shacky apartment or something. No. Some of the people are high ups in the community, high up leadership. And I know that for a fact. But like I say, so it gets pretty creepy when you start thinking about that. But no, I mean, Louisiana's got so much lore, about it and everything else. And it's a beautiful state. It's just got so much lore about it. And people wonder, hey, like I said, all these years later, when I go out hunting in the woods, I love hunting, deer hunting, squirrel hunting, hog hunting. I go out in the woods, even behind my house. I wonder, hey, is something out there? And you never know. One evening, this was about a year ago, my wife, she believes my encounters. She just doesn't believe these things are everywhere. But when I was hunting, I was out there hunting, and my stand's about a quarter mile behind my house out in the woods and across the creek. And my wife, when I came back in, I heard something. I heard a whoop, whoop going, through the woods. And kind of between me and the house, and I don't know what that was. I didn't see anything, but I just heard it. So I came back in from hunting, and I was sitting down, putting my gun up, and she came to me, she says, hey, I heard this whooping sound behind the house.
Oh, wow.
And I said, you heard it? And she goes, yeah. I said, I heard it when I was on my stand. So, she was scared and everything, so I had to go out there. It was purposely turned dark, and I went out there with a flashlight looking. I didn't find any tracks or anything. I don't know what it was. It wasn't no hoot owl. I know that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what that was, because there ain't a whole lot of things that loop like that in the woods. But well, I'm not saying it was a Bigfoot. I don't know. I didn't see it. She didn't see it. We just heard it. But
it makes you be aware for sure.
Oh, it opens your eyes,
Yeah.
and like I say, it opens your eyes and makes you think. And I've worked with several officers that have seen these creatures, and they don't want to talk about it, but they mention it to us, and me and the partner, and that's it, And so me, I'm retired already. I'm old. I'm retired. I'm not worried about it. I don't
Right.
care if people think anymore. I don't care about that, So.
Steve, I have one more question for you, and thank you so much for hanging out. So you mentioned in your original story that the Bigfoot there never went inside the house. Over your years,
never did.
Through law enforcement and just living in certain areas, have you ever heard any stories of Bigfoot actually going in houses of people?
I never have. I've never heard of one going ahead and ever breaking into someone's house.
Gotcha. Cool. I mean, you never know. Sometimes those stories get hidden, and you just kind of ask certain people to see if they come out. But man, Steve, it has been just such a fun time chatting with you. People can reach out to you. Definitely, I'll put the email in the description if you want to talk to a person that is down from your area and knows the kind of places you're living in. But definitely also people feel free. You can always reach out to me at bigfootsociety@gmail.com to share what you've encountered. But man, Steve, it's been a privilege. And anything else that you would like to say in closing thoughts?
Well, I think that people, keep an open mind. In our world, we're taught in public school that if you can't see it, it's not real. That certain things exist and certain things don't exist. I think the best thing to tell people is just go ahead and go by what your gut feeling is and what you see. Because I'm going to tell you right now, until you personally see it, that's going to change your life forever, like it did mine and several other people who've seen these things. So I just tell people all the time, they ask me, well, I want to see one. I want to see one. When you don't want to see one is when you're going to see one.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
That's how they pop out. And I can prove that because if you're a deer hunter, When you see a deer, when you're looking for him or when you're not looking for him, that's when he pops out. So animals are that way.
Yes. Oh, I love it. Wow. Good stuff, man. So, Steve, thank you so much for coming on. Please keep in touch if anything else interesting comes your way in the future, please.
You got that, and I appreciate your time, and thanks for having me.
Please take a minute to help out the show by subscribing on YouTube, making sure you hit the bell so you don't miss any notifications, and share the episode on YouTube with a friend. Also, if you're listening to us on a podcast, thank you so much. Make sure that you're subscribed, share the show with a friend. Really, it's all about sharing the show wherever you can. If you've had a Bigfoot encounter related to the following or know someone who has, please reach out to me at bigfootsociety@gmail.com or pass on my email. Here's the list. If you've had any encounters in Oregon, which I'm sure there's probably a few of you out there, please feel free to reach out immediately. You can use email bigfootsociety@gmail.com. A special thank you to all the Bigfoot Society Patreon and YouTube channel members. It's your support that helps keep the show going, and I extremely appreciate it. If you want to join in the fun, you can join over at patreon.com/the Bigfoot Society. I'll see you there. And again, thanks for listening.
Her and I can get on here and we can tell our stories. Maybe there's somebody else out there listening that's too afraid to tell their story. Maybe this will give them the courage to come out and not feel so bad about it. Who cares what anybody thinks? I know what I saw. I know what's out there. That's all I care about.
Let people know. Please let them know. If you ever see one of these things, you need to tell. Because if you don't, then shame on you. You know? Shame on you.